Hey friends, welcome to the Life on Life podcast. I'm Punky Tolson, and this is the place where everyday life and biblical truth come together, and you and I get to walk it out together. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Life on Life. We're talking all about how to stand firm, really firm in our faith, what that means biblically and what that looks like practically. And the verse that we're looking at is from Isaiah chapter 7, verse 9. Come on, say it with me. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. So can you personalize that with me? If I do not stand firm in my faith, I will not stand at all. And that word firm also means strong, unwavering, uncompromising. If we don't stand firm in our faith, we're not going to be able to stand in any way. And so the first point that we looked at was this, that we will not stand firm in our faith if we do not learn to practice being still in the presence of God. It's in the presence of God that we come to know God. And there's a verse that we looked at last time, and it's from Psalm 46, verse 10, that says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still. Cease striving. Cease contending with me, with the noises of the world, with the distractions of the world, and with our flesh, all of that. And cease striving means to put aside all of that, come into God's presence for the purpose of knowing Him. It's part of our quiet time, yes, to spend time in His presence. But there's a deliberate, intentional part where we deliberately say, okay, Lord, now I want you to respond, to speak to me in your word, not just breezing through a devotional, grabbing a quick verse and then saying, check, I'm done, but taking time to sit back, to listen to what God's saying in His word. Think about it. Think about who He is. Discover some aspect of His character and really come to know Him. Not always searching for answers for ourselves or to find out more about ourselves, but it's in God's presence, in knowing Him and practicing that stillness with Him and really just coming to know Him better and better and better, that we begin to see ourselves. So I'm going to give you a little illustration from my life, just to do some life on life with you guys and share something from my life that has to do with this and how practicing God's presence really came into my life and became a lifestyle, so much so that it helped me in making one of the biggest decisions of my life, which was to marry my husband, John. So this was 20 plus years ago. We were dating. And when we started out dating, John had said early on, I want you to know that I am praying about whether or not to marry you, and I want you to be praying about that too. And I really had never had anybody ask me that before or tell me that before. And so we had been praying about whether or not to get married. Now, John had been married previously for 30 years. He was a widower of about almost 2 years when I met him. So he had been in a wonderful, great, loving marriage. And I just can imagine after being married for 30 years, you're going to struggle. It's going to be hard to kind of take that step and make that decision again. I mean, like, are you making the right decision? And, is this the right one? And all of those things. And so I had a lot of empathy. I had a lot of compassion for the struggle he was going through. And I was certainly praying. He was praying. We were praying together. But I had my own thing going on with Jesus too. And I was listening to Him. And I was 42 at the time and had already developed and cultivated the lifestyle of spending time to listen to God and just listen to His voice. Not just to get answers again, but just to listen to His voice, to know Him. And so it was almost, it was maybe almost a year into our dating. And John was just wrestling with all of this, and it just became emotionally loud, if you will. And so I just sensed that, what he's struggling with is kind of, getting my mind pulled in different directions. And so I said to him one night, happened to be New Year's Eve, I just said, you know what, I need to take a break. I had sensed that God was saying, pull back, come away, just quiet your heart, quiet your soul. And so I did that. And I said, listen, I'm not breaking up with you, but if you think we need to break up and you need to date other people, then okay, but I have got to hear God. I just got to get His voice tuned in my head again. And that's what I did. So I took a break. And by the way, yes, he did go out on a couple dates during that time. So I was like, whatever. I mean, I'm never going to blow it. You're never going to blow it if we make God the priority. Okay. Don't forget that. So I took some time just to pull back, not to go to God and say, okay, I'm wringing my hands. What's going on? What's going on? Calm him down. What do I do? What do I do? I just pulled back to inhale God and come to the well, if you will, like I talked about last time, and just let him speak to me about who he is and about his character, and just to know him better, and just to settle into that place again where I just inhaled and exhaled him and being in the moment with him and not just clamoring and striving to get an answer. And so we did, I think maybe it lasted like 3 weeks, and we did end up getting back together and started dating again, only to have John break up with me a couple of months later, because again, he just couldn't make that decision. He was still wrestling with all of that. And I was sad, and I was taken aback. And I had sensed all along that God was saying to my heart, this is the one. Now listen, I say this all the time, y'all. I have never heard the audible voice of God. I guess I would like to. I think I might. It might be scary, but I've never heard the audible voice of God. So when I say I heard it, what I heard is in God's word, something that was resonating with my heart that was saying yes. Now, I didn't get any specific, word from the Lord, all of that. It just resonated with my heart because it resonated with his word. And it was his word that was speaking to me. And it wasn't like, you are to marry John Tolson. It wasn't that at all. It was just this sense of, okay, I think that this is it. And so when he came over and broke up with me that night, I was quite surprised, more surprised. Yes, I was hurt and crying, as I said, but I was more surprised because I was like, okay, Lord, did I miss this? Did I miss you somehow? But let me tell you what I did when he left my house. Yes, I cried, but I did what God tells me in his word to do. And he tells you, rejoice in the Lord always. Give thanks to the Lord in all things. And so I did what he told me to do. I got down on my knees. I praised him. I thanked him just for who he is and for what he has done in my life. And then I asked him this, Lord, if John Tolson was not the one and I got it wrong, then forgive me, but please guard my heart and affections, because I don't want to become calloused. I don't want to become bitter or cold or resentful or angry, and guard my heart from being hardened to love again. And so that was my prayer. And it was a difficult weekend, but I wasn't falling apart, y'all. I was what a good friend of mine calls broken in a solid place. I was broken in a solid place. And I know that came from years of cultivating that relationship with Jesus, where I was practicing being still in his presence, just coming into his presence for the purpose of just knowing him, reading about him in his word, and spending that time thinking, pondering, meditating on what he tells me about who he is. And so that's a really good thing. And it served me. It's always served me well. But in this case, let me tell you that time between when John broke up with me on that Friday night and he came back on the next Wednesday and called me and said, can I come over and talk to you? Well, God had been working on my heart during that time. He had been just speaking to me in his word about who he is and just some wonderful things that were encouraging my heart. So John called that night, and I could have easily said, heck no, buddy, you can't come over here. But the Lord had so prepared me in that time of pulling away with him. So all that to say, he came over that night and asked me to marry him. And I firmly believe, had I not been in the habit of practicing stillness, practicing the presence of the Lord and being still and knowing that he is God, I don't know that I would have even allowed John to come over that night. So I want to say this to you. Jealously guard your time with the Lord. Make that a priority. You will never waste time spending time with the Lord. In fact, you will never miss out on anything if you make God the priority and you spend that time with him. You may miss out on some things if you don't. So make that a priority. If you have to, put it on your calendar, write it in pen, make that commitment daily, and then take on occasion, larger chunks of time to spend with the Lord in his presence. Practice stillness. Practice being still in God's presence. Because if you want to stand firm in your faith, you've got to learn to be still in the presence of God. We will not stand firm in our faith if we don't practice being still in God's presence. And you will come to know and love him even more, and you'll come to love that time with him even more. So the greatest thing that you can give God is that time, so that he can tell you who he is, tell you how much he loves you, show you wonderful, marvelous things in his word. So make that a priority in your life, okay? Alrighty, that's that for that, and we'll continue on with how to stand firm in our faith, because if we do not stand firm in our faith, what? We will not stand at all. Okay, I love you guys so much, and don't you forget that you are greatly and dearly loved by the King.